Welcome to another episode of Coffee with Alissa. As we continue our series on value-add services that our advisors provide, I'll be interviewing Megan Muller. Today we'll be discussing managing debt. American household debt has reached a record of almost $17 trillion at the end of 2022, which just means it's even higher now, of course, that we're in 2024. Almost $700 billion is on credit cards. There's almost 12 trillion on mortgages, 1.5 trillion on vehicle loans, 1.6 trillion on student loans. But statistics also show that Americans are really feeling the pain because debt delinquency, which, missed payments of 30 days or more, has also increased. So can you explain what the debt to income ratio is, what that ratio should be, and why it's important to stay around that number?
The debt to income ratio is really the portion of an individual, or you can look at it as a couple's monthly income that goes towards paying off debt services. So those could be your mortgage, credit cards, auto loans, all things of that sort. And so if you wanted to look at that mathematically for yourself, you could take the total of all your monthly debt payments and you would divide that by your gross income. And so gross income, if you look at your paycheck that you get every month, is that first number that you get paid, the money that you get paid before taxes and then your other deductions are taken out. And so ideally, we would like to see, if you calculated your debt to income ratio, you'd like to see that either at 36% or below that mark. And so really that's saying that if you look at your expenses and your budgeting, 36% or less of the money that you make on a monthly basis should be going to pay off those debt services so that you have money to go towards your other expenses, savings, as well as food and necessities and all the other things that come up throughout your month. And it's really important to keep that debt to income ratio as low as possible because it makes you more attractive to lenders. It communicates that you earn enough on a monthly basis to be able to pay off and service your debt, and that you're not overextending yourself either. Lenders typically won't issue you a mortgage if your debt to income ratio becomes higher than 43%. So somewhere in that 36 to 43% range, you're sort of maxing out on your debt utilization and your attractiveness to lenders. And so at that point, you look like a borrowing risk and you're more likely to default. So keeping that debt to income ratio low is really preferable.
So, if you're watching this video and you're thinking like, oh my gosh, I'm in over my head, I don't even know where to begin, to tackle the debt that I have. There are some common strategies out there. Megan, would you talk through some of the most popular ones?
So there are two main strategies that I think people know of when they think of paying off their debt. But I think it's really important to start off by saying that across the board on a monthly basis, you're going to be wanting to make at least the minimum monthly payment across all of your different debts. So monthly minimum payments on your credit card balances, auto loans, and mortgages. And then the two, different approaches that you can take from there is either the snowball or the avalanche approach. So I'll talk through kind of both of those separately. So the snowball approach is where you look towards paying on your smaller debts first. And so what you do is you pay the minimum payment on all your debts. And then the extra money that you have in your budget to sort of throw at paying down those debts, you put towards the smallest balances first. And an advantage to this is that it helps you build momentum because you're paying off the smallest balances first. You start to see debt kind of disappear quickly. That's at least what we hope to see. And that builds your confidence, that builds, the wherewithal that you have to continue paying down that debt. And it gives you a lot of, stimulation to keep doing that. One of the drawdowns to the snowball effect, the snowball tactic, is that it costs more over time just because you are looking towards paying off the smaller balances, as opposed to with the avalanche method, you're really looking towards paying down debts with the highest interest rate. So with the avalanche method, you're putting those extra amounts of money that you have towards the balances with the highest interest rate. And the goal there is to pay less interest along the course of time. One of the disadvantages to the avalanche tactic is that it can take a little bit more time to see results, especially if those higher interest rate debts also have higher balances. But again, this is mathematically the more, suitable course to take if you just want to pay less in interest over time.
Yeah, thank you for sharing all of that. Either strategy is great, right? It's kind of personal preference, whatever you feel is going to give you the most success. And like you said, that desire to keep going. So I think some people can put that on paper and they're like, I've got this. Other people are saying like, oh, my debt is just too much. I would like some help, or I think just accountability, right? Accountability is huge. And if you don't have that at home from like a spouse or a partner or a family member or a friend, right? Maybe you need an advisor to be that source of accountability. So how do we as advisors add value in this space?
I like to think of this in sort of the 3 A's, and those A's are action, accountability, and then appropriateness. And so looking at action, an advisor can really help you sit down and look at your budget. So your monthly income versus your expenses, and they can really help you to look towards additional opportunities to pay down that debt faster. If you're spending money in areas where they don't add a lot of value to your life and you're able to give up some of that spending in order to pay down debts quicker, that might be a really good value add that your advisor can point out to you. They can also help make recommendations like setting up your automatic minimum payments so that on a monthly basis you are covering your bases and doing that, and then you can kind of put your effort and energy into the strategies that we talked about previously, those avalanche or the snowball strategies in terms of making additional payments on your debt. In terms of accountability, I think it's really helpful for both the client and the advisor to know when you're working towards paying down debt. On the advisor's side, it's really helpful to be able to know that so that we can check in with you, definitely help you feel like you're being guided through that process. And on the side of the client, it's really helpful to be able to come back and share, milestones in paying off your debt, and then just to get that additional level of satisfaction and see, even the effects in your financial plans and how paying off debt is going to make differences for you long term and in the future. And then appropriateness, or determining appropriateness. I think it's really helpful to have an advisor when you're going through big life changes or making, purchases. So in terms of looking at the current interest rate environment, it might be really helpful just to bounce ideas off your advisor and say, does it make sense for me to finance this investment where I could really self-fund it? And looking at whether or not the current interest rate environment plays a role in that decision. And then on the opposite side, if you are maybe looking to refinance a home or do something like that, there are additional costs that come with refinancing. So the disparity between the current interest rate that you have and the new interest rate that you're going to get has to be large enough to justify those refinancing costs. And an advisor can help you determine that. I really think that, debt is something that's really hard to manage once you get in over your head. But for someone who's starting out, it's something that, just be aware of, be conscious of, and as long as you can continue to stay on top of the payments that you're making, look towards advisors to help you wherever necessary. But debt is definitely not something that you should be afraid of, just to use it to, your strengths.
Thank you so much, Megan. You just shared a wealth of information with us, and thank you to all of our viewers for watching today. I look forward to seeing you next month.